Today, let's learn about Pluto water and a little about the mineral springs in French Lick, Indiana, on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. Pluto water was a trademark for a natural spring water with strong laxative properties, which was very popular in the United States in the early 20th century. The water's laxative properties were from its high content of mineral salts, with the active ingredients sodium and magnesium sulfate. The company emphasized in advertisements that the laxative was effective from a half hour to 2 hours after ingestion. It was the mineral springs that attracted settlers to French Lick, Indiana. The story goes that French settlers settled in the area in the late 1700s because of the salt springs. They were reportedly run off by Indians by the mid-1800s. The waters were a great spot for deer, buffalo, or other animals to drink, and back then would have been referred to as a lick. That's how the French Lick got its name, according to an early Indiana history book written in 1884. It continues saying, in the town of French Lick, there are 13 springs, 6 of which are used to treat invalids, and in 1832 people began coming for medicinal uses of the springs, and about 1845 a Dr. William Bowles built the first resort to start accommodating the guests. People truly believed in the therapeutic powers of these spring waters. Here's a look inside the resort. In 1903, a Dr. George Call said he examined 150 patients at French Lick and credited the waters in aiding everything from gastric function and appetite to gout, alcoholism, and even rheumatism. He stated that medical men at the time possessed no agents that could take the place of this mineral water, according to The History of French Lick Springs Hotel by Richard Walter Haupt. And here's another picture of the spring inside the hotel. I haven't seen an explanation on how this works. Do you sit in that little circle and there's access to the spring in there? I'm not sure. It looks like it. The name Pluto water was coined in the 1890s by 2 doctors from Louisville, Kentucky. Not really sure why it's named that. One theory is that it is to distract from the fact that it smells and tastes horrible. People say it tastes as bad as it smells. Pluto is named for the Greek god of the underworld, where they believe the springs come from. Sales of the tonic grew 25-fold from 1903 to 1919. By 1919, it took 450 railroad cars to transport the bottler's output. It was sold in drugstores around the world and awarded a blue ribbon at the World's Fair in Paris. Pluto water was immortalized in the advertising slogan, "When nature won't, Pluto will." Magnesia acts to pull a salt or saline solution into the intestines from the blood. This excessive fluid then provides a flushing or laxative action within the intestines. Here's a funny advertisement from Life magazine from May 1940. So she's telling her husband that she's constipated and she's just going to stay home in bed. He says, "I'm putting my foot down. You are going to drink this Pluto highball," he called it. And from what I gather, the Pluto highball is from when you order it at a soda fountain for 10 cents as opposed to just buying a bottle of it for 25 cents or 50 cents. Anyways, afterwards, she's feeling great and sailing and stuff. See how happy she is? I just thought this one was funny. Pluto water had great marketing. They advertised for everything from constipation to the flu, to diet advice, to calming your nerves. This one here starts out, "Mama slapped me." And then you have the hangover remedy. My favorite story that I read about Pluto advertising is a joke that I found. So, a drugstore pharmacist left a handyman in charge of his shop while he ran a few errands. Now remember, drugstores back then were more of general stores. Anyways, the pharmacist comes back and he asks if there was any sales while he was out. The guy said he sold a bottle of Pluto water to a customer that was looking for some cough syrup. After the pharmacist said, "Pluto water's not intended for coughs," the handyman answered, "I told him to take a half a glass every half hour, and after 3 doses, he'll be afraid to cough." Now, I didn't find a lot of information on names of people who started the Pluto bottling company. I found the Bowles guy who started the hotel and resort, but no information on who started bottling the water as a company, as a corporation, and who were the geniuses behind the marketing. When it was discovered in the early 1970s that the Pluto waters contained traces of lithium, a controlled substance used as a mood stabilizer in the treatment of bipolar disorder, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration authorities banned oral consumption. But in reality, a person would have to drink about 20 gallons of the Pluto water to get a buzz, which no one could or would drink at one time. These days, you can still go to the French Lick Springs Resort. You're not allowed to drink the water anymore, but you can still take a bath in this Pluto water or sulfur water. And apparently it is detoxifying, but it's still very stinky. Sulfur water smells like stinky eggs. So people go and they pay to sit in this water for about a half hour or so, and they say that it actually does rejuvenate, and supposedly it does help with different ailments. As far as collectible bottles, Pluto bottles don't really have anything embossed on them except at the bottom, which is embossed with a devil type looking guy who's Pluto, although on mine he just looks like a stick figure. It does say Pluto under the stick figure, but he doesn't look anything like these other figures that I see online. My bottle is pretty worthless. It has a few chips at the base, and since it was dug up, it has a lot of this kind of rash on it. The guy at the antique store didn't want it. He just gave it to me, since we talk all the time, and I tell him some of the stories that I find on certain bottles. My quart-sized bottle seems to have a few air bubbles and is stretched at the neck, and it's aqua, so I would say that this bottle dates before 1920. It fits in the time frame of the most popular time of production, between 1903 and 1919. And that's about it for this episode. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.